I believed him. That's what wives do when they trust their husbands. But over time, something felt different. Daniel seemed distracted whenever he was home. He spent more time on his phone. If I walked into the room while he was texting, he quickly locked the screen. At dinner, he often stared into space. Sometimes Sophie would tell him a story about school, and he wouldn't even hear her. "Dad, are you listening?" she would ask. Then he would smile and apologize, but his mind always seemed somewhere else. One evening, after Sophie had gone to bed, I sat beside Daniel on the couch. "Are you okay?" I asked gently. "Of course," he replied. "You seem stressed lately." "It's just work." That was always his answer. Just work. After a while, I stopped asking. I told myself that every marriage goes through difficult periods. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he was under pressure. Maybe I was imagining things. Then one afternoon, something happened that planted the first real seed of doubt in my mind. I was doing laundry when I found a crumpled receipt inside Daniel's jacket pocket. Normally, I would have thrown it away without looking. But a few items caught my attention. There was a bicycle helmet, several children's books, a stuffed dinosaur toy. I frowned. Sophie was 12 years old. She hadn't ridden a bike in years, and she certainly wasn't interested in stuffed dinosaurs anymore. When Daniel came home that evening, I showed him the receipt. "Oh, that?" he said with a quick laugh. "Those were donations for a children's charity event." His answer came so quickly that I almost believed it. Almost. But something about the way he avoided eye contact bothered me. For the first time in 16 years, I felt a small crack appear in my trust. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Beside me, Daniel slept peacefully. I watched him breathing in the darkness and wondered why I suddenly felt so far away from the man I loved. The next few weeks were even stranger. His business trips became more frequent. Sometimes he left on Friday and returned late Sunday night. Sometimes he missed family dinners. Sometimes he seemed irritated by simple questions. One evening, Sophie asked if he would attend her upcoming piano recital. Daniel smiled. "Of course I will." But when the day arrived, he called 30 minutes before the performance. "I'm sorry," he said. "An important meeting came up." I watched the disappointment on Sophie's face. She tried not to cry, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. That night, after putting Sophie to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen. For the first time, I allowed myself to think a terrifying thought. What if Daniel wasn't telling me the truth? What if the distance between us wasn't caused by work at all? I pushed the thought away immediately. I loved my husband. I trusted my husband. I believed in our marriage. But deep inside, a quiet voice kept whispering that something was terribly wrong. And I had no idea that the truth would be far worse than anything I could imagine. After that night, I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking everything. I wanted to trust my husband. I wanted to believe that all marriages go through difficult seasons. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ignore the growing feeling in my heart. Something wasn't right. Over the next month, I started noticing things I had never paid attention to before. Daniel's phone was always with him. Even when he took a shower, he placed it nearby. If it rang while he was driving, he would quickly silence it. Whenever I asked who was calling, he always had an answer ready. A client, a coworker, a supplier. There was always an explanation, and somehow every explanation sounded rehearsed. One Friday morning, Daniel told me he had another business trip. "I'll be in Chicago until Sunday night," he said while packing his suitcase. I forced a smile. "Okay, be safe." He kissed my forehead and left. As soon as the front door closed, I felt a strange heaviness in my chest. That evening, after Sophie went to a friend's house for a sleepover, I sat down to pay some household bills. We shared a credit card account, so I logged in to review recent transactions. I wasn't searching for evidence. At least, that's what I told myself. Then I noticed something unusual. A charge from a grocery store. The date was from earlier that afternoon. The problem was that the store wasn't in Chicago. It was in Cincinnati, 3 hours away from our home. I stared at the screen. Maybe it was an old charge. Maybe the system was delayed. Maybe there was a simple explanation. But deep down, I already knew those excuses sounded weak. For nearly an hour, I sat there staring at the transaction history. My hands trembled. My stomach felt sick. Finally, I made a decision. One that would change my life forever. The next morning, I got into my car and drove to Cincinnati. The entire trip, I kept telling myself I was being ridiculous. I hoped I would arrive and discover that everything was innocent. I wanted to feel foolish. I wanted to prove myself wrong. But fate had other plans. Using the addresses connected to several recent purchases, I eventually found myself driving through a quiet residential neighborhood. The streets were lined with small houses and neatly trimmed lawns. Children rode bicycles along the sidewalks. Families worked in their gardens. It looked like an ordinary American neighborhood. Then I saw Daniel's car. My heart nearly stopped. I parked across the street and gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my fingers hurt. For several minutes, I couldn't move. I just stared. Maybe he was meeting a client. Maybe there was another explanation. Then the front door opened. A little boy ran outside.